speak now to a racing pundit and Newcastle fan and all-round legend. Always love having his company, and that's John McCririck, who's up in Yorkshire, or up in York, I should say, very busy. John, a very good evening to you.
Very good evening, Roddy, and I think Leroy's got it absolutely right. I'm a Newcastle fan through and through, and I really don't want to go through this. All over the winter, we'll be travelling to these ghastly places, and the sheer strain on our players. We've got a depleted squad anyway. 2 or 3 of them have got niggling injuries. Apparently, the season's barely started. We've got a huge game against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge over the weekend, and I just don't think this Europa League and that it's second, third degree stuff. And Leroy's got it dead right. The fans won't be in uproar if we're beaten. I won't mind if we're losing. We're just favourites. They're making Newcastle 7-5. It's 9-4 against at Tromitos. I don't know if Leroy, if you played there, but I wouldn't fancy going there. There's some worse places to go in Europe, and it's about 9-4 against the draw. So anyone can win it, but I certainly wouldn't be distraught and heartbroken if we lost.
John, interesting question for you. We spoke to Jamie, a Liverpool fan, just before the break, and we started talking about the Capital One Cup, of course, the League Cup and the FA Cup. All these trophies now, and you're referring to the Europa League there, do you believe those 3 trophies have now become the sort of hardly worth it trophies?
Well, the FA Cup, my goodness, we were brought up on the FA Cup. I remember, and you two won't remember, but the great writer at the time was Desmond Hackett, who wrote in the Daily Express, and he was the man in the brown bowler. And there was the days before television was at all the grounds and all that kind of thing. And the crowd really rose that Desmond Hackett was there. They applauded him, that the great man was there, and consequently it sort of made the event. And they wrote at the time that Newcastle United, this was in the 50s, were probably the greatest cup-fighting side of them all. Great games we had against Portsmouth and teams like that, against Pompey. And I was outraged to say probably the greatest cup-fighting side was ridiculous. They were the greatest cup-fighting side of them all. And we won it 3 times in the 50s. We were absolutely amazing. The FA Cup, it has gone down a bit, but still, I think in the passionate supporters, the FA Cup really is still very, very special.
John, there's something else I think you should be outraged about as well. Arsenal being linked with Czech Tiote. You know, aren't Newcastle their direct rivals now? I mean, Arsenal sell to their rivals, but Newcastle aren't going to do that, are they?
Well, I thought if we can get through at the end of next week, is the end of the transfer window. If we can get through without losing a player, Alan Pardew has done exceptionally well. And to lose Tiote will be an absolute tragedy. And they're saying, Demba Ba's saying, feed the sheep, Demba Ba, wonderful that he scored. And he's a terrific player. And what a gentleman he is. He's kept Cisse there because they're both together. And he sacrificed himself last season. He was a great goal scorer until Papa Cisse came along. And now we got Feed the Sheep back in form. So feed Demba Ba, Cisse. We've got a terrific team there, but there's no strength in depth there. And you need double the squad. And when you see the team that we're putting out, it's almost, I'm not saying the best that we could put out, I'm delighted Steve Harper's getting a game. What a loyal, decent player he is, and all the years he's been with Newcastle. He's had his chance. I always think he's the best of the reserve goalkeepers in the Premiership. I think it's absolutely fantastic, Harper. So he's getting a game, but do we have to go through all this? And maybe this Andronicus or wherever it is, maybe that's one of the better places to go to, although Greek skint and penniless and all that sort of thing, so they probably have to buy their own food there, whatever it is. But you've got to think that the other places they could go, in the Ukraine and all, Azerbaijan and all these dreadful places, Newcastle, we can do without all of that.
I tell you, you wouldn't be one for the tourism industry, John. You're sounding a little xenophobic there, but I'm sure you'd enjoy yourself if you went there. Hang on a second. We've got some news for you, John.
John, I've got something that might cheer you up.
Go on.
Atromitos have scored. They're 1-0 up. Dennis Epstein, I think, in the 24th minute.
Well, I'm delighted you said that. I'm not sad. And I don't think Newcastle United fans, nobody would blame Alan Pardew. There won't be sort of Pardew out and marches demonstrating at the Sports Direct St James's Park. So I'm not worried about that. You know, we just don't want this. Remember, we did so well last year. One of the main reasons is we had no other games. We were out of the League Cup and the FA Cup very early, and we had a week rest time and time again, and that saw us through the season. Now we could play about 20 or 25 more games than we played last year. Now that is
Oh, John? He's gone.
It's a shame. Just getting into
John, we'll get John back now. Because what I wanted to ask John, which is interesting, if you're not actually participating in any other tournament. You've got to focus on the Premier League. Do you need that bigger squad then? McCririck joins us now. I'm sorry, I don't know why we lost you there, John. I'm just wondering whether you were performing cartwheels in your hotel room when you found
I think I was having a celebratory glass of champagne that we're a goal down.
That's exactly right. We're just talking to Leroy there about the size of the squad. You're worried you haven't got the strength in depth. But I was saying to Leroy, I mean, if you're only involved in one competition, the Premier League, then you don't need that big a squad, do you?
I don't say only. Obviously, the League Cup, and where we'd play harder for the League Cup and for the FA Cup. I hope we'd throw everything at it, but not for this European jaunt. It is second-degree stuff, even if you win it. Who won it last year? I can't remember. You're the experts. You'll probably remember. I can't remember. I think didn't Stoke do very well? Fulham have done well in it once or twice.
What?
But it is a kind of thing you just don't want on your sort of mantelpiece or in your boardroom. Of course, our silverware in our boardroom is pretty. There'll be no robbers in there trying to go and steal the silverware in the Newcastle boardroom. But this is the kind of jaunts, and they're money making. That's all they're there for. Yeah, and the fans aren't really interested in today. We're 1-0 down. If you could tell me before I leave that we're 2-0 down, I'll be even more happy.
I'll try and do my best, John. But what I will say, John, is that I think the supporters do, when it gets to the quarter-final phases of any cup, it gets really exciting. It's great for supporters who supported the club for many years to get that sort of reward and have that day out, or as Europa League, a few days out. But the question I've got for you is about the squad, depth of the squad. And everybody talking about Andy Carroll going back to Newcastle. And I've got a feeling if he did go back, that would have a detrimental effect on the squad in terms of spirit. And you said it's a great team spirit there. What do you think?
Well, I think if we've got all these extra games to play, if we're playing many more, we need extra players. So Andy Carroll, the fans are welcoming him back. He's a terrific character. He's one of the old-style centre-forwards, Leroy, the great charging. I remember, if anybody asked me who was the greatest of the old-style centre-halves, the block centre-halves, good old Frank Brennan we used to have, absolutely immovable in the centre as a defender. And Andy Carroll, one of the old-fashioned target centre-forwards, terrific header, as we all know. So if he went back, I don't think Cisse and Demba Ba are going to be absolutely sort of desolate because of it. They need rest. There's far too much football played, and unless we're going to get this 2 or 3 week break round the Christmas time, it's just not fair on the players. Now, you know a little bit, Leroy, more than I do, about the strain that it takes. And you just cannot go on producing. And so many players now are playing with a little niggling injuries. They know they shouldn't play, but they're loyal, and they get sort of all the painkillers put in them and that sort of thing. You tell them to do good for the game. So until they really change that around and give us a break in the midwinter, it's the same with the national hunt jockeys. They're given a bit of a small break. About 10 days have been brought in now, and so much pressure from the public saying you can't go around 12 months a year riding horses virtually every day. So they need the break, and I think Newcastle fans would welcome Andy Carroll. I think the players would as well.
John, very quickly then, where did Newcastle finish at the end of this season? What do you think?
Well, it's easy to say. If we could beat our fifth, we'd be doing fantastically well. The game against Spurs, we did really well to catch Spurs on a real off-time. No Adebayor for Spurs. What a great help that was. And they're bringing 2 or 3 other players in. So we got them at the right time, and we fluked the result. It should have been a draw. That game should have been a draw. So we go and get that. We had a real tough game against Chelsea, but they didn't play well against Reading yesterday. So maybe we can get a point at the bridge. But it is a whole thing. It is going to be a much harder than it was a year ago because we've got these extra fixtures. So if these Greeks can go and do us a big favour, we can get Andy Carroll. I'd love Andy Carroll to come back. But it'd be tremendous if we do that. We've got to remember just one other thing, and I plead with you because you're always talking about football, going slightly diversing. Why on earth don't we have a salary cap in football? Now, they have it in the NFL in America. I love American football. And there, so if any team could spend on wages, say 30 million, just a figure plucked out of the air. So Man U, they can pay 10 or 15 million to Rooney if they want to, and to anybody else, but they can only spend 30 million. Now, that's not a thing that the law wouldn't allow, because in America, they're so litigious and freedom and that kind of thing. They've got a salary cap. The public are paying for these grotesque salaries. £200,000, they're saying, for Robin van Persie. Now, I'm all for market forces. I hate government interference, state interference, bureaucracy, but there should be a salary cap around because the public are paying these outrageous prices to go to football matches.
John,
so why can't we campaign for that?
It's a very interesting question. I'll pick it up with Leroy after the break. Really appreciate your time. I know you've enjoyed today, and it's been a heck of a day for you on Ladies' Day, on and off the track, because there were 7 high-class fillies in action, weren't there, in the Darley Yorkshire Oaks. So you must have had it. Oh, what a magnificent day you had.
But it's not that, but there was a monsoon. It was absolutely terrible. And when you see the girls, they're all in their finery, tottering around, sort of holding their high heels. Why girls wear high heels at all, I don't know. Let alone when they come to the races.
John,
it was like a marsh. The betting ring was like a marsh at the end of it. So that was a bit of a dampener on proceedings. You can certainly say that. But it's tremendous that you're seeing Frankel, of course, yesterday, historic Frankel yesterday.
Yeah.
So it is great up here. But I'm still wondering, you haven't told me the extra goal yet. Have they got another one, those Greeks?
Don't worry, you can celebrate. I'll tell you what, we'll give you a call and let you know if there is another one. John, we really appreciate your time. We're going to have to let you go, but I'm sure we'll catch up with you throughout the season. John McCririck there, of course, betting legend, personality, big Newcastle fan. He's full of life. Always great to have his company.